What if the world's most celebrated mystery writer, well, what if she didn't actually set out to write at all?
Hmm,
What if her path to becoming, this literary superstar was just as full of twists and turns as one of her own plots?
right. It's a great hook.
Today, we're taking a really fascinating deep dive into the early life of Agatha Christie, and this is all drawn directly from her own autobiography.
Yeah. And our mission here is really to kind of unearth the surprising traits, those experiences that formed her,
Yeah.
and just the sheer force of personality, really, that shaped this iconic figure long before she was Dame Agatha.
Exactly. We're looking at her pretty unconventional childhood, her journey into writing, which was completely unexpected, and just the very human story behind the legend,
Hmm.
the person behind the name.
So get ready to discover some nuggets of knowledge, maybe some surprising insights that made her who she was.
Definitely. And to really dig into this, let's start where she starts with her childhood, which sounds surprisingly happy, actually.
It really does. She called it a cherished beginning. Yeah, she actually said, one of the luckiest things that can happen to you in life is to have a happy childhood. She talks about her home, Ashfield,
Ah, yes,
a
Asheville.
home and a garden that I loved, and her parents who loved each other dearly, and of course, her nanny.
Her wise and patient nanny seems like a key figure.
Absolutely. Really shaped her early views on things.
What really struck me reading about those early years was just the sheer power of her imagination.
Oh, absolutely.
You'd think, okay, future writer must have been reading constantly from age 2,
Right.
right?
Logical assumption.
But her mother actually believed, get this, no child ought to be allowed to read until it was 8 years old.
8. Wow.
Yeah.
Different times.
Totally. And yet Agatha just taught herself. She studied like meaningless pages, street
Just
signs.
figuring it out on her own.
Yeah. And eventually she's reading a book called The Angel of Love aloud to Nursey. How do you think that kind of self-directed learning maybe shaped her later on?
Well, I think it points to more than just being smart, right? It shows this early curiosity, this drive to figure things out for herself, maybe even to create her own rules,
Mm-hmm. Making her own rules. I like that.
and definitely creating her own secret worlds. That became pretty fundamental for a mystery writer, don't you think?
Oh, for sure.
That innate demand for secrecy she
Right.
mentions. It kind of mirrors the hidden clues and motives in her plots.
And the imaginary friends. Not just friends, but kittens.
Right, Clover, Blackie, and Mrs. Benson. And she was genuinely upset when the housemaid, Susan, sort of spilled the beans, saying, oh, she plays that she's a kitten with some other kittens.
Ah, ruining the secret world.
Exactly. And then there were the imaginary schoolgirls like Sudaverte, who she later realized was actually a part of herself, more of an observer, a fluid facet, she called it.
That's quite insightful. And the inventive play, the railway systems in the garden.
Oh, the tubular tub and terrace railways?
Yeah.
Yes. With stations and everything?
And she drew a plan for it on cardboard that turned up 60 years later. That's some serious dedication to your imaginary world.
It really is. But it wasn't just imagination. Her autobiography shows these moments of really profound emotion, too, like getting Tony the dog when she was 5.
Ah, the dog story.
The joy was apparently so unbelievable she was struck dumb. Couldn't say a word.
So what does she do?
She retreated to the lavatory, a perfect place for quiet meditation, just to process how happy she was.
Wow. That tells you a lot about her inner life, even as a child, that need to process things internally.
Definitely. Crucial for understanding complex characters later, maybe.
Could be. And her mother's wisdom comes through so strongly. The story about the canary, Dickie.
Yes. It flew away, they came back, and her mother's lesson was, never cry about things until you are sure.
Such a practical, grounding piece of advice.
Right. And Agatha really felt the strength of my mother's love and understanding, that magnetic and healing touch when she was ill or upset.
There's also that moment with the butterfly in her hat.
Oh, yes. Where her mother just knew she was distressed about it being alive, even though Agatha couldn't say why. Released her from that long bondage of silence.
That kind of intuitive understanding, that must have been incredibly formative for someone who would later observe people so closely.
Absolutely. And zooming out a bit, the other characters around her also seemed to fuel this observation. Nursey, for instance.
The Bible Christian.
Yeah, very devout. Instilled the importance of the Sabbath. And apparently told Agatha she hoped she'd be Lady Agatha one day.
Ah, setting high expectations.
Only to gently bring her back to earth with, that you can never be. There's also a funny note about Nursey's portrait by this painter, N.H.J. Baird.
Oh.
Apparently Baird painted very realistically, maybe a bit grimly, And Agatha's mother thought the portrait made everyone look so dirty.
Ah, there's a little bit of artistic critique there. And what about Marie Saget, the French maid?
Ah, Marie. Their friendship started off rocky, like a couple of dogs, Agatha said, because of the language barrier. But they quickly bonded over French conversation and these improvised plays they put on. Apparently, Marie did some very realistic spitting in an argot, slang, which convulsed my father with mirth.
Oh my goodness, that's quite a scene.
And again, her mother's insight and kindness helped Marie get over her homesickness. It shows this pattern of empathy in the household.
It really does. And the mother's directness, too, just telling that boy throwing gravel, please don't play so near here, just go a little further away.
And he just went, amazing.
Yeah. So you can really see how all these early experiences, the imaginary worlds, the deep emotions, the maternal wisdom, these quirky characters, how they must have laid the groundwork for crafting complex people and relationships later on.
Definitely. It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About how those early threads in our own lives still resonate. What influences from your own childhood still surprise you today?
That's a great question for all of us, I think. Okay, so moving on from childhood. Life changes, as it does. As she enters her teenage years, things shift. There's this shadow of loss.
Yes. There was constant financial worry even before her father died, which happened when she was 11.
Only 11, that's young.
Very. And then her mother suffered bad heart attacks afterward. Agatha wrote that this was her first time what it was to feel anxiety for other people. A real growing up moment.
A heavy burden for a young person. But despite that, she seems to have had a pretty vibrant social life later on. Cairo, for instance.
Oh, Cairo sounds like a blast. A dream of delight, she called it, dancing 5 nights a week.
Wow. And she talks about romantic friendships being a kind of apprenticeship.
Yeah, learning the ropes of relationships, I suppose. And the whole elaborate etiquette of parties, like cutting dances.
Yes, where someone could cut in. A complex social world.
Definitely a masterclass in social observation, which, again, you see echoes of in her Country House Mysteries, right?
Absolutely. Then, of course, the world changes dramatically. World War I.
Right. And she becomes a VAD nurse. Volunteer Aid Detachment.
And any romantic ideas about nursing?
Gone. Immediately. Plunged into the reality of bedpans, urinals, scrubbing of Macintoshes, the clearing up of vomit.
Grim reality check.
Very. She learned from a Sister Anderson, who sounds very practical, taught nurses to see if the crock is boiling with common sense and a reasonable amount of patience.
Practical skills needed.
And the smells. The constant unwashable smell of Bips paste and later chlorine from disinfectants, that really stuck with her. A very sensory and probably unpleasant memory.
You can imagine. And amidst all this, her courtship and marriage to Archie Christie were, well, also quite something.
Unconventional is a good word. She met him because a friend said, basically, he's called Christie, he's a good dancer, look out for him.
Huh, simple as that.
Pretty much. But there was this interesting contrast, she notes, between his practical, logical mind, especially about joining the Royal Flying Corps, and her own sort of initial romanticism.
A bit of opposites attract, maybe.
Perhaps. And he was certainly direct,
Yeah.
asking her to break off her existing engagement.
Yeah, just like that.
His words were apparently, what on earth does that matter? You'll just have to break it off, that's all.
Wow, no beating around the bush there.
Not at all. And remember that Christmas quarrel over the dressing case?
Oh, the magnificent dressing case. She thought it was an absurd extravagance.
Right. But after the argument and making up, she wrote that they somehow felt closer than before. Which is interesting, isn't it? That conflict, when resolved, can deepen a connection.
It can, yeah. A bit of drama seems to have followed them, though, even with family.
Oh, you mean Archie's mother, Peg?
Yes. The hysterical tears and eau de cologne when they announced their marriage plans.
Classic mother-in-law drama, maybe. Though his stepfather sounds like he calmed things down.
Luckily. And then post-war life. Finding housing, setting up home.
Yeah, the challenges of that. Microscopic kitchenette. But they had this amazing soldier servant, Bartlett, who was apparently like Jeeves.
A real Jeeves. That must have helped.
Definitely. And Agatha tried her hand at cooking for Archie, who had nervous dyspepsia, basically, chronic indigestion.
Tough customer.
But after wartime rationing, she found she actually appreciated simple food. Even found sand and gravel soup interesting, which says something.
Huh. Maybe about the quality of wartime food. And then the war ends. Her reaction to the armistice is quite striking.
It really is. She describes walking through London, feeling dazed, and seeing women dancing in the street in this wild orgy of pleasure.
But she didn't find it joyful.
No, she found that almost brutal enjoyment to be frightening.
Hmm. Frightening. So looking back at this whole period, the upheaval, the war, the relationships, what does it tell us? What's the takeaway? Especially her reaction to the end of the war.
Well, that reaction, finding the celebration frightening, it really highlights her capacity for observation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Seeing maybe the slightly unsettling undercurrent even in moments of joy.
Like she saw the potential darkness in human nature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That slightly detached, discerning eye is the eye that would later dissect motives and find the flaws beneath the surface in her characters. This whole period, the upheaval, it hones that skill.
Which then, perhaps naturally, led her towards writing, even if she didn't plan it.
Precisely. Though, as we move into her professional journey, the most remarkable thing is how accidental it seems at first.
Right. She flat out stated she had no ambition to be a writer. Her focus was only contemplated one thing, a happy marriage.
Can you imagine? And she saw writing books as just like a hobby almost, a natural successor to embroidering sofa cushions.
It's incredible. One of the best-selling authors of all time basically stumbled into it.
It really is.
Yeah.
And maybe that lack of initial pressure, that lack of grand ambition, maybe that actually freed her up creatively.
Could be. So how did she transition to being a professional writer?
Well, eventually it became about the desire, indeed the necessity, to write another book and make some money. Practicality kicked in.
The financial motivation.
Yeah. And interestingly, she apparently always hated the mystery of the blue train. Hated it.
Really? But it sold well.
Sold just as well as her previous book.
Oh.
Which just goes to show sometimes the work you don't love still finds its audience.
That's true.
Yeah.
And her actual work experience clearly fed into the writing itself. The dispensary job.
Oh, absolutely. Being surrounded by poisons, it made death by poisoning a very natural choice of method for her mysteries.
Makes perfect sense. And she was meticulous about plotting, wasn't she?
Very. Asking those key questions. Who should be poisoned? Who would poison him or her? When? Where? How? Why? The classic detective structure.
And she preferred in-time murder, right? Murder within a close-knit group.
Yes. Which is really key to her style. It focuses everything on the psychology, the relationships, the secrets within that group. Much more intense than, say, a sprawling crime saga.
And she famously found the love interest a terrible bore in detective story.
Yes. Get on with the murder, essentially.
So she really mastered that specific form, like with 10 Little Niggers, and then there were none, as it's known now.
Right. She said that took a tremendous amount of planning. She was really proud of how the explanation was perfectly reasonable, like a complex puzzle finally solved.
And witness for the prosecution.
That one came quickly, apparently, after she'd immersed herself in reading famous trials. She had this priceless moment of seeing the thing not on the stage but in your mind's eye. Visualizing the drama.
That ability to visualize must have been crucial. But her life wasn't just writing rooms and poison bottles. She became a world explorer, too.
Oh, definitely. Travel was huge for her. Visiting Honolulu was her wildest dream. She talks about the sheer excitement of her round-the-world trip.
Sounds amazing, though not always smooth sailing, right? The surfing.
Huh. Yes, the surfing in Hawaii. Not quite the graceful experience she might have imagined. Ended up bruised, scratched, and completely exhausted, wishing she was back somewhere safer, like Muizenberg in South Africa.
A dose of reality there. Then she did something really adventurous, that solo trip to Baghdad.
That was a big one. Undertaken specifically, she said, to find out now what kind of person I was, whether I had become entirely dependent on other people.
Wow. A real journey of self-discovery.
Absolutely. Yeah. She mentions the chaos of arriving in Damascus, but also the magnificent Orient Palace Hotel. It was about proving her resilience.
So how did all this travel feed back into her life and work? She clearly appreciated beauty, calling Isfahan the most beautiful city in the world.
Yes. The rose, blue, and gold colors. A real aesthetic appreciation.
But she also dealt with the rough side. Bed bugs on trains.
Right. And navigating illegal money transactions, finding food on Russian trains, the practical challenges.
Hey, archaeology. That became a huge fascination at Ur.
Yes. Feeling the lure of the past. Seeing that dagger slowly appearing with its gold glint and immediately wanting to be an archaeologist herself.
That's quite a moment.
It really is. This blend of appreciating beauty but also tackling the practical difficulties, it must have given her such a rich perspective, a much broader palette for her stories.
And that fascination with archaeology, of course, leads her to Max Mallowan.
Exactly, her second husband. And that relationship also seems to have developed unexpectedly.
He was just a friend initially.
Yeah, a friend she met on site. Then suddenly she felt that nothing in the world would be as delightful as being married to him.
A sudden realization.
Seems so. And he sounds like he was very capable, good at managing people. Even the notoriously difficult Catherine Woolley, the wife of the lead archaeologist at Ur.
Useful skill on a dig, I imagine. And he seems to have been very supportive of Agatha.
Immensely. Convincing her she could do things she doubted herself on, just saying, of course you can do it.
That's wonderful support.
They had shared adventures, arguments too, like the one over the absolutely necessary writing table she needed on a dig.
Huh. A writer needs her tools.
Apparently so. But it seems like a really strong partnership. And his passion for archaeology was infectious. His dream was digging at Nimrud.
Which became his famous book, Nimrud and Its Remains.
Exactly. And Agatha got involved too, drawing finds to scale, mending ivories in the Beat Agatha, her own little workspace on site.
Beat Agatha. I love that. So it gave her this whole other world, this other creative outlet alongside her writing.
It really seems like it, a true partnership. Yet despite all this success and adventure, she remained quite private, didn't she? Disliking public appearances.
Yeah, she felt an author's business is simply to write, and that writers are diffident creatures, they need encouragement.
It's quite a poignant insight, isn't it? The private person behind the very public name.
It really is. So let's try and pull some threads together here. How did all this travel, this immersion in archaeology, how did it actually influence her creative output, do you think?
Oh, profoundly. You see it everywhere in her later work, don't you? The settings, death on the Nile, murder in Mesopotamia, the characters, the artifacts, the whole atmosphere. It gave her this incredible, authentic backdrop.
Right. It wasn't just research from a book. She'd lived it.
Exactly. And what about her view of writing as a trade? She uses that word. A trade that still allows for creative ideas. What can we learn from that perspective?
Well, it strikes me as incredibly practical. Maybe seeing it as a trade, as a job to be done, instilled a certain discipline.
That makes sense. It allowed her to be so prolific, perhaps, treating it like work, showing up every day, essentially.
Yeah, but without squashing the creativity. She still had the creative ideas, the ingenious plots. Maybe that practicality grounded the genius.
I like that, grounded the genius. It suggests that creativity and discipline aren't opposites. They can actually fuel each other. You need the structure to let the ideas flow.
So we've really journeyed through quite a life here, from those childhood wonders at Ashfield through war and marriage to archaeological digs and becoming this global literary phenomenon.
And her autobiography, it's more than just a list of events, isn't it? It's this deep reflection on memory.
Yes, and on what she calls the second blooming of life after 50, finding new purpose, new joy.
And the nature of happiness itself, how it changes. And ambition, how that shifted for her.
Definitely. And through it all, there's this enduring sense of,
Well, hope.
yes. She explicitly says, hope is the virtue we should cultivate most in this present day and age. That feels very resonant. It really does.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about, maybe a provocative thought for you listening. What ghosts from our own pasts, maybe places, people we knew, forgotten dreams, what ghosts might still exist in our own eternity, as she might put it, subtly shaping who we are now and maybe what we could still achieve?
That's a deep one. How the past lives within us.
And tied to that, how can we cultivate that sense of hope she valued so much in our own lives? How do we find new enthusiasm, that second blooming, even as time inevitably marches on?